It's Dishmeet Kaur. Today my presentation will be on the topic human immunity. Section 1 includes infections and protection against bacteria. What's infection? Infection is the invasion of microorganisms in the body, for instance bacteria, viruses. An infection can cause fever and other health-related issues depending upon the area it occurs. So, what's the methods of transmission? Here we are having the methods of transmission that are direct contact, insect bites, indirect contact, and food contamination. Direct contact is like it could be spread through person to person, as if a person carrying any disease gets in touch with someone, as if he kisses, sneezes, or have any sexual contact, then eventually that disease could be transferred to another person. Indirect contact, it happens like if one person touches the particles of sneezing or coughing of another person. This way it could cause an infection to the another person as another person touches the surface and picks up the disease. Insect bites, it's another type, like it could be if a person gets snatched by an animal, such as malaria is caused by mosquitoes. Food contamination, it includes a great risk to an infection such as E. coli can live in foods and eventually a person can be infected after he consumed the food. So, the immune system consists of three lines of defense against foreign pathogens. So, the first line of defense include the physical and chemical barriers to prevent the pathogens. Skin is a physical barrier of body. Stratum corneum prevents entry of foreign agents. The thin upper layer is called epidermis. A second thicker layer called the dermis contains hair follicles, sweat glands, nerves and blood vessels, as we can see in the diagram. A layer of fatty tissue called the hypodermis lies beneath the dermis and contains blood and lymph vessels. Fatty acids on the skin surface create a dry, salty and acidic environment that inhibits the growth of some microbes and is highly resistant to breakdown by bacterial enzymes. Apart from this, the dead cells of the epidermis are frequently shed along with any microbes that may be clinging to them. Shed skin cells are continually replaced with new cells from below, providing a new barrier that will soon be shed in the same way. Mucous membrane. Mucous membrane protects the internal body from the environment, enormous allergies, pathogens and infection. Secretions present in it helps to fight against microorganisms and allows nutrients to enter the body. Okay, so now the gastrointestinal system. Digestive system is great at having its own barriers against infection as it has number of acidic and alkaline secretions which includes stomach acid, enzymes, bile and intestinal secretion, and even the pH level of stomach is too low and because of it bacteria could not survive there. Urinary tract. Urinary tract is protected by the urethra in the female body and in males too, but urethra is long in males which enable the bacteria to get into bladder as urine washes the pathogens. In females the urethra is shorter and there is a chance of bacteria entering the body or the bladder. During pregnancy, bladder has little protection which gives a way for pathogens to enter. Now, the components of second lines of defense. So here are the components that are fever, cytokine barrier, phagocytic cells, natural killer cells, complement system. Talking about the fever. The fever is caused by the toxins released by the pathogens or by compounds called pyrogens. These compounds are released by WBCs in order to regulate temperature of the body. Moderate fever stimulates the phagocytes and inhibits growth of microorganisms. However, a very high fever is dangerous. Cytokine barrier. What are cytokines? These are the small molecules secreted by cells in response to stimulus such as interferons, lymphokines, interleukins, etc. So, interferons are produced in response to viral infection. Virus-infected cells released interferons, which are glycoproteins that protect unacted cells. They act outside cells and are quick-acting, and action is temporary. Interferons inhibit the viral replication within host cells, activate natural killer cells, Macrophages increases resistance of host cells to viral infection. The next component is phagocytic barrier. Certain type of lymphocytes of a body like polymorphonucleocytes and monocytes and the natural killer cells in the blood as well as macrophages in tissue can phagocytose and destroy microbes. Macrophages are formed by enlargement of monocytes. Fixed macrophages include alveolar macrophages in lungs, histiocytes in connective tissue, Kupffer cells in liver, etc. Natural killer cells. They kill virus, infected cells, and some tumor cells of body by creating piriformes, lined pores in plasma membrane of target cells. These pores allow entry of water in target cells, which then swells and bursts. The next component is complement system. A system of over 30 proteins working in cascade manner to attack membrane by forming transmembrane pores and microbes causing their death. Now we'll discuss about the role of macrophage. First of all, the invader is identified by the macrophage and then it binds to invader. After that, invader is engulfed by macrophages and then with the help of lysosomes, it breaks down and in turn destroys the invader. And after that, with the help of cytokines, the macrophage sounds an alarm to recruit other WBCs for the help, which include neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. What's inflammatory response? It's actually accompanied of second-line defense. When tissue injury occurs, whether caused by bacteria, trauma, chemicals, or any other phenomena, multiple substances are released that cause changes in the tissues. The entire complex of tissue change called inflammation. The tissue injury results in redness and swelling along with pain and production of heat that may result in fever, and such manifestation is actually known as inflammatory response. So how defense, self-recognition and tolerance, and the immune system disorders. Third line of defense. Third line of defense include lymphocytes that produce antibodies to antigenic fragments. Third line of defense is acquired immunity. This includes antigens. Most of the antigens are the proteins that act as a stimulus to have an immune response. As when macrophage detects antigens, then T cells get activated, which is known as cell-mediated immunity. Our body consists of different diseases and each single responds to one specific antigen. So, the third line of defense is all about antigens, T cells. So, what are the antigens? Antigens are the foreign molecule that invade the body of an organism. Antigens stimulate the production of antibodies in response to infection. Antigens are generally large molecules, mostly proteins, found on the cell walls of bacteria or on the coats of viruses. The region of it combines with antigens called paratop. So, now comes to B cells. To have an immune response, two types of B cells process that are memory cells and the plasma cells. Memory cells are responsible for giving rapid response to secondary challenge, and the plasma cells are responsible for conferring an immediate response production by secreting specific antibodies. Let's come to the different type of T cells. We are having three type of T cells that are killer T cells, helper T cells, and the suppressor T cells. Killer T cells. These cells attack directly and destroy antigens. For this reason, these are known as killer cells. After binding to the specific antigen on microorganism or cells, the cytokinetic T cell secretes hole-forming proteins called piriformes, which punch large round holes in the membrane of attacked cells. Then flow rapidly into cell from the interstitial spaces. The attacked cell become greatly swollen and usually dissolve shortly thereafter. They also have capacity to react against graft. The next comes helper T cells. These cells stimulate B cells to produce more of antibodies. They regulate immune system and play a key regulatory link between CIMS and AMIS. Suppressor T cells. They are capable of suppressing the functions of both cytotoxic and helper T cells. These cells suppress the entire immune system, keeping it away from attacking the own body cells. So here are the immune system cells. Our immune system cells include neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, basophils. So, neutrophils. They are the most common type of blood cells and are the ones who reaches its site of infection first and have a phagocytosis process. Lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are present in lymphatic tissues. These are present in lymphatic tissues, for instance, spleen. These cells are responsible for creating antibodies and memory cells. Monocytes. Monocytes, when get excited from the blood cells, gets turned into macrophages. Eosinophils. These are the rare cells and are responsible for releasing toxins to kill pathogens and parasites. The next comes the basophils. These are actually the rare cells that are unclear with their specific function, and they secrete anticoagulants that are sought and the ones to act against hypersensitivity and antigens. Next come the immunoglobulins. These are known as antibodies. They are glycoproteins and Y-shaped used by immune system in order to identify and to neutralize the foreign objects. These foreign objects could be bacteria, pathogens. Each antibody is made of 4 peptide chains, and as we can see in the diagram, and each antibody is made of 4 peptide chains, 2 heavy and 2 light, connected with one and another with the help of disulfide bonds. And here's the structure of immunoglobulin. So here we are having types of immunoglobulin. Immunoglobulin G, it's the smallest and the most abundant, and it stimulates phagocytosis and complement system. Immunoglobulin M, it's the largest and earliest body to be synthesized by fetus, and it shows 1% response to immune system. Immunoglobulin A, it's the second most abundant, and it's present in secretions. It protects from inhaled and indigested pathogens. Immunoglobulin E, it mediates hypersensitivity, acts as mediator in allergic reactions. Immunoglobulin D, it present on the surface of B lymphocytes as receptors and cause activation of B cells. So next comes the self-recognition and the tolerance. Self-recognition is the immune system's ability to recognize itself and known self with the help of antigens in order to keep assured that it will not attack oneself. What's the self-tolerance? Self-tolerance is the immune system's ability of recognition and then not to respond against self-produced antigens. So now comes the transplantation of organs. Very often when some human organs like heart, liver, kidneys fail to function satisfactorily, transplantation is the only remedy to enable the patient to live a normal life. Organ transplantation is a replacement of injured, diseased tissue or organ by grafting a healthy tissue. The body is able to differentiate self and non-self, and the cell-mediated immune system is responsible for the graft rejection. So now we'll discuss about the types of rejection, and which are hyperactivity, acute and chronic. Hyperactivity. It occurs after a few minutes later when the antigens didn't get matched. And the acute one, it occurs between a week to a couple of months and will always happen to some extent your whole life. Chronic, it occurs after many years and when a new organ will be damaged by the body's immune system. So, as we just talked earlier about that if self-tolerance will not be there, there would be some autoimmune disorders. So now let's discuss about what's autoimmunity. Memory-based acquired immunity evolved in higher vertebrates based on the ability to differentiate foreign particles from cells. While we still don't understand the basis of this, 2 corollaries of this ability have to be understood. 1. Higher vertebrates can distinguish foreign molecules as well as foreign organisms. Most of the experimental immunology deals with this aspect. Second, sometimes due to genetic and other unknown reasons, the body attacks cells, and this results in damage to body, and this is known as autoimmune system. So here are some of the common autoimmune disease, and we'll discuss about the 2 in the next slide. So here comes the rheumatoid arthritis. It's an autoimmune disorder or an inflammatory disorder which occurs when the immune system of a body mistakenly attacks the tissue of one's body. This attack can cause redness, stiffness, swelling in the joints. To some people, rheumatoid arthritis can damage skin, eyes, lungs, heart, and blood vessels, which means it can damage a wide variety of blood systems. It poses a great risk of getting red, dry eyes and mouth, and abnormal body composition, and many more problems. So let's come to multiple sclerosis. With this divide, multiple sclerosis, a protective layer surrounding the nerve cells known as myelin sheath gets damaged, which results in the slowdown of the transmission speed messages between the brain and the spinal cord. And its symptoms include weakness, trouble in walking, and many more. So let's discuss, now it comes to section 3, which includes the biology of vaccination. Okay, so here comes what's acquired immunity. This type of immunity develops when a person's immune system responds to a foreign substance, antigen or microorganism, and also starts developing a memory for that foreign substance. So we are having two types of acquired immunity, that's active immunity and passive immunity. As we can see in the table, that active immunity is developed when the person's own cells produce antibodies in response to infection or vaccine. And the passive immunity, it is developed when antibodies produced in other organisms are injected to a person to encounter antigen. So we are having two types of active immunity, that's active natural immunity and active artificial immunity. Active natural immunity, and thus antibodies are made just with exposure to an infection, and in the active artificial immunity, antibodies are made after getting the vaccination. So the passive immunity, passive natural immunity, in this kind of immunity, antibodies are transferred from mother to baby. In passive artificial immunity, in this antibodies are acquired from immune serum disorders. What are the benefits of vaccination? Vaccination is actually the means of providing vaccine to the people in order to strengthen the immune system. But sometimes there is a risk attached with immunization. But if we consider in general, the positive ones outweigh the negatives. And vaccination is the most effective method of preventing infectious disease. That's what's stated by WHO, World Health Organization. And the advancements made in biological sense have armed us to effectively deal with many infectious diseases. And we can take an example of smallpox. So let's consider the case of measles to discuss vaccination benefits. Measles is a viral infection that replicates in the nose and throat of an infected child or adult. Its symptoms include high fever, running nose, watery eyes. These started to appear after 7 to 14 days. And an acceleration in the measles cases in the UK could be observed before the introduction of vaccine in 1968. After the introduction of vaccine, a decrease in the measles rate could be easily observed. And with the introduction of second vaccine, that's MMR vaccine, the rates further decreased. And the Public Health England surveyed data in 2020 confirming that there were just 114 suspected measles cases in UK. And in 2020, right now, there are merely 29 confirmed cases in UK, which shows a great decline in the measles cases in the UK. So how the vaccination is provided to the people? It's through vaccination programs. So what are these? These programs aim at eradicating illness from the body and obtaining the best way to get herd immunity followed. These programs provide vaccine at different stages depending on the need. The common vaccination you can include measles, mumps, tetanus, and some of the vaccination programs are influenza vaccination program, MMR vaccination program. So let's discuss about the factors affecting the vaccine uptake. There are lots of factors, like the perception of risk is one of the most among, and apart from this, we could say the low confidence in vaccination also could be said as responsible for the same. Another factor affecting the vaccine can be that people may find it hard to have some time out of the hectic schedules to have their vaccines are aiming at providing the herd immunity followed. So what's herd immunity? It's all about vaccinating the population, which in return were able to resist the transmission of disease among population. Number of cases being generated by infectious person can vary for different disease, and this is what known as basic reproduction number, or in short we could say it RO. For example, in measles cases, the infected person could infect more than 16 to 18 people. And on the other hand, considering the cases of flu, it can infect about 2 to 3 additional people. Vaccines are considered as the most efficient and powerful public health tool that is majorly responsible for protecting population against a specific disease and to make sure as much as the population is vaccinated so we do not slip below this vaccine threshold for herd immunity. And this is our end of the presentation, and here's a list of references.